Welcome to Beardy, Bruce Lee Central.
Hey everybody, it's Birdie here. What's going on, guys? Okay, so I managed to find this rare VHS tape of Joe Louis talking about Bruce Lee and actually performing Bruce Lee's speed punch. The same speed punch that Bruce Lee taught him at the Long Beach tournament in 1967. Okay, this is some rare stuff, guys. Take a look.
Gradually start showing you some of the moves that Bruce Lee worked with me on specifically. I'm going to rush through this, and the transition that's going to take place in the next 30 minutes perhaps took place over a period of 4 to 6 months of Bruce and I working together. Basically, he would show me some drills and I would go and work on it for a week. I'd come back, he'd show me something else, so forth and so on. One of the first things I want to point out is, let's pick it up in terms of what my style looked like at the time Bruce and I actually started meeting. Alright, now zoom back and watch my stance here. In the old days, I used to fight like this. In Okinawa, I learned to fight with my right side forward. As I fought with my right side forward, I would have one hand in front of my rib cage like so, one hand down along my side, I just protected my side. And we concentrate a lot on front hand strikes to the face like this, and a lead off side kick off the front leg. So stepping up this way, folding a knee and just locking it straight in. Sometimes we would step behind and lock it straight in at our opponent. So a lot of what Bruce Lee did was, in the beginning, he did start copying my fighting stance, which he thought looked pretty theatrical, and it did for film work. I switched, when I came over from Okinawa, I switched from fighting right side forward. I switched back and started fighting left side forward because I got a real bad bone bruise on my heel a week before the 1966 United States National Championships. So when I went up to fight and won that tournament subsequently in 1966, I fought everybody and beat everybody with my left side forward. So at the time I met Bruce, my fighting stance looked something like this. A low stance, this arm is in front of my rib cage, and I kept my head straight against my opponent. I did a lot of faking, a lot of punching with the front hand, and lots of grabbing and track with the front hand, and I would work quite a bit off this lead leg side kick coming in. Sometimes I would grab, come over the top with a punch, or come over the top with a hammer fist. I didn't use a lot of variations of combinations of what have you. Facing straight ahead, my stance looks something like this. Protect my rib cage, I put my elbow in front of that. Protect the groin, I put my fist in front of that. Protect my rib cage, and I stayed here. Somebody went from ahead, I would lean back, step out of range, or just catch him with a defensive side kick coming in, or beat him to the draw by not letting him get set, or not letting him fly first. So this is where I was when I met Bruce Lee. I was already the United States National Champion. I was already an amateur world champion, and I'd won a number of major tournaments before he came along. So at this point, I got a master instructor working with a pretty darn good fighter at that time. So Bruce liked my lead off side. I was working a lot of punches with the front hand, and I was working a lot of kicks off the front leg. So that's where we started working from the beginning. One of the first things we started to learn was this forward hand strike, which is very popular in the Jeet Kune Do and the Wing Chun styles. Now let me show you the stance that we worked on first of all. He would position me pretty much in a boxer stance, one foot in front of the other, and he would line my front hand up in front of my chin. Notice one of the key principles he worked on first was power side forward. So since I was right-handed, that was my power side. He emphasized by putting that side forward. Interesting enough, I was already doing that in Okinawa. Now, this front hand went in front of my face, this elbow went in front of the rib cage. The rear hand was not off to the side like this, like you do in boxing, but again, both fists were straight in front of my chin, and I had sort of a vertical fighting stance like this. The Wing Chun punches were always straight in. One fist straight in front of the other, they rotate over the top, and as you would execute the punch, right at the end of the punch, you would get to power basically from 4 places. Now watch the power. Number one, just as you would make contact, watch my forward hand strike here. I was taught by Bruce to hit with the bottom 3 knuckles. I would extend the punch right at the end. I would snap this wrist. That would be one source of power. Right at the end of the punch, I would snap this elbow. That would be a second additional source of power. Another source of power would be right at the end of that punch, I would torque the body and snap. And of course, the fourth and most important source of power was you would step into the punch, get the weight of the body behind it. And right on the end of that punch, just like in boxing, the front knee would straighten out. Now watch my front knee. Just as I make contact, the front knee snaps out, locks out, gives you that final thrust, that final additional surge of power. So we worked quite a bit on just developing the mechanics of that particular movement, the forward hand strike. That was, in the late 60s, the most popular tournament technique known to man. And to this day, it is still the fastest technique known to man, the forward hand strike. Now, here is the key that he emphasized to me so far as getting that explosive, deceptive speed. It's very important. It's of critical importance, and I'll show you what I mean by speed against my sparring partner. All right, Ron Weaver, come here in position against me. Just face me just as I'm facing you now. Now, what I like you to try to do is, Ron is very fast, as you will be watching him on this tape. I want you to take your right arm and just place it right in front of your chin, just like so. Now I want you to do a real fast, traditional upward block, like so, as fast as you can. Let me see how fast you can block up. Real fast, real fast. Okay, now, I want you to concentrate on me and try to move as fast as you can. Now let me just demonstrate this forward hand strike that Bruce Lee worked with me. I'm going to try it, first of all, from about 4 feet away. I'm going to throw the forward hand strike straight in front of your face. As soon as you see it coming, that's exactly what I want you to do, Ron. I want you to do an upward block and try to block it. Put your hand down there. Give me about 4 inches of space. You've got about 4 inches to move. I've got about 4 feet to move. As soon as you see that punch coming, just block it. All right, watch carefully. Let's see how quick you are. Oh, let's try it again. Try to move fast. Now. Let's try it one more time. This time I'm going to step back about 6 feet. Notice from here, Ron, I'm out of kicking range. Okay, let's see if you can just touch my hand. Touch my hand, I'll consider it a block. All right, give me the 4 inches. You've got 4 inches to move. I've got about 6 feet. Concentrate now. Let's see how fast you are. Now, if you play this tape back slow motion, you notice he wasn't able to touch my hand. Now, relax. Bruce Lee used to do this in demonstrations at tournaments. The first time I saw him do it was 1966 International Karate Championships. Well, I didn't think much of it, but when you put somebody in front of you and you say, well, there's no power in that particular punch, well, then that's where I learned what they call the famous Bruce Lee 1-inch punch. In actuality, there's no such thing as the 1-inch punch. I don't know where the 1-inch punch concept came from. If you watch Bruce Lee in his demonstrations, he was always throwing the punch from
at least 12 inches away.
He would stand like this, somebody would put a focus pad on their chest, and he would thrust forward to demonstrate how much power he had in that forward hand strike. Now let me demonstrate what I'm talking about here. I used to do this in nightclub acts with a telephone booth, and I would always ask the bouncer of the nightclub to come up on the stage and demonstrate. First of all, I would demonstrate to see what kind of speed he had in his punch. Then I would show what kind of speed I had. Then people would say, hey, fine for speed, but where's the power? Now let me show you what I'm talking about, what's power. Ron, grab one of those focus pads. Now watch this for a second. First thing I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this focus pad, put my feet side by side together. Ron, I want you to square off in the traditional boxing stance or a karate stance, and I want you to take your best punch, your power punch from the rear side here. He's going to throw a punch with the rear hand, and I want you to hit me dead center of the chest as hard as you can. All right? Now watch. I'm going to take this focus pad. It's about 1.5 inch thick focus pad. I caution you not to try this at home. I'm going to put it flush against my chest. Now try not to slide off and hit me in the chin or slide off and hit me any lower, okay? Let's see what kind of power you got in that punch. All right, go for it. All right, notice how far back he knocked me. All right, let's try it again, Ron. I want you to really step in there and put some oomph behind it. All right, as hard as you can. Lay it in. All right, notice again how far back he's driving me with a rear hand punch. Now, Ron is a darn good professional fighter, especially at full contact. He's boxed for a number of years. He's been doing karate for quite a number of years. He's in darn good shape. He's incredibly fast. You get in front of him, if you don't think he's got power, let him hit you. Now, Ron, Face me the same way as I was facing you. I want you to put this flush against the center of your chest. Hold it flush now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of hitting with my rear hand, I'm going to instead hit with my front hand. People think you have no power in your front hand. I'm not going to cock my hand way back like this like you did, Ron. Nor am I going to punch and start my punch with a closed fist. I'm going to start with an open hand. I'm only going to punch from this distance. To prove where I'm starting to punch from, I'm going to touch that pad with the tip of my fingers. Now from this point here, all I'm going to do is close the fist and show you what kind of power you can potentially have in that forward-hand strike. Alright, you ready? Alright, hold it tight against your chest, Ron. Hold it tight, hold it tight. Alright, keep it, make sure you keep it vertical. Alright, and watch how much power you can get in this type of punch. Alright, ready? Notice how much further I drove Ron back than he knocked me back, and I'm only firing a punch from approximately 4 inches away. Notice the key. After I squeeze the hand, as I'm making contact, the power comes. Look at my wrist. I'm bending the wrist for power, straightening the elbow for power, torquing the body for power, and on the end of it, this is where Bruce Lee taught me how to release your energy. It's like water flowing through a hose pipe. If you squeeze on a hose pipe, what happens to your power? It ceases to flow. But you release the energy, and instead of hitting the pad, I'm throwing my energy. I'm trying to throw my energy 4 or 5 feet behind Ron. And all Ron does is he acts out that flow of energy as I'm making contact. Now, I didn't hit him as hard as I can, but there were days when I used to do this in nightclubs. I would hit men in the chest, big bouncers, people who a week before had knocked somebody clear across the roof of a car in a street fight out in front of the club. And as soon as I hit these bouncers, their feet would completely leave the ground and come up and kick me in the jaw. They would turn flips. I used to knock people back 10, 12 feet, and I'd always have somebody stand behind it. That's the kind of power that Bruce showed me how to get into your punches. So anybody says there's no power in your forward-hand strike, there's no power in your front leg, there's no power in your front hand, it's nonsense. You can hurt somebody just as much with the front hand as you can with the rear hand. It's a matter of knowing how to execute the technique properly. Just like in weightlifting, when they would use that breath control, you take that energy that the breath gives you, that short, quick breath, pump yourself, and then you would explode. Same thing I'm doing here. I'm converting that breath into an explosive energy. Now watch what I mean when I say follow through. So you get the full impetus of how to get the speed and the power in this forward-hand strike, which was one of the key swords that Bruce Lee used as the supreme technique, the premier technique in his system, Jeet Kune Do. Now Ron, what I want you to do is this. I want you to put this focus pad on, and I just want you to hold it tight up there. Let me throw a couple of forward-hand strikes right dead center of the pad, all right? Traditionally, it's going to turn more this way, so you got a good recoil. I'm going to show what I'm talking about. Most karate people, when they come in to throw a punch, they step in, they throw the power to this depth, and they stop at this point. So they throw a punch, hold it tight, and they stop there. They stop there. They stop there. They try to pull the punch back as fast as hard as they can. They're losing the energy. What you want to do is, just as you're making contact, relax the body, relax the arm. Don't tighten it down, relax it, so the energy follows through. You're able to release that energy. You're able to transcend, throw that energy. So it's not the power, the impact, but it's the flow of the force behind it and your ability to release that energy. Now this is what I mean by releasing energy. Hold it tight again. Now remember, I was throwing a tight punch with the rear hand. This time I'm throwing a loose punch with the forward hand strike. Complete relax. Complete relax. Complete relax. Notice how much more follow through I've got. Now this time, I want you to put this pad flush against your chest like so. Hold it flush right against the shoulder like this. What we used to do is throw roundhouse kicks with this particular punch. But now hold tight, brace yourself a little bit, brace yourself a little bit. Now just hold it with one hand, because I'm going to hit right there, got me? Now watch the body torque. Now as I'm hitting, do not tighten down like so. Watch it, don't come up, tighten down like so. That's not what I want. Watch again. Do not come up, tighten down like so. That's not what I want. But now switching. Front hand strike. Relax. Relax. Throw the energy. Throw the energies. Everybody see how much more power I've got by releasing it. Try it again. Hold it tight, right in. Brace yourself. Relax, relax, relax.